What is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're doing well. And this is a very, very important video presentation, taking a look at the 10-year Japanese bonds and how that relates to gold, how to accumulate crypto, of course, how we got here and how I'm priced in 2026 potentially. And of course, we'll look at other metrics, but let's start off with a banger here. So every time in the last 3 years, the last 5 years, whenever USDT dominance comes up to this level and it gets rejected, which is what we're seeing right now, it leads to a big drop in USDT dominance. And of course, that triggers a major altcoin rally. Now, it doesn't make sense to a lot of people right now because of the current market conditions and the prevailing fear. And for that, I've prepared a short presentation for you to fully understand where we are and potentially where we can go based on the market psychology, the past performances, and of course, even looking at potential bear market lows and the current bear flag, right? So smash a like anyway. This is going to be a very much one of the most useful videos that I've done. Of course, as always, follow us, share the content, but I want to get into the topic. So this fallacy of absolute bottom, if you try to catch the absolute bottom in crypto, there is a very high chance you'll end up missing everything. Okay, so you must understand the reasons why you're doing what you're doing and qualify that in your brain, in your financial planning, to understand you're in the riskiest of risky markets. However, institutions are even treating Bitcoin as a risky asset. So it's very important to understand the fallacy of the absolute bottom doesn't exist. Okay, some people want to get out and sell 90,000 to 100,000 is always a good point. Last week or the week before that, we got up to 97, 98,000. Good point of rejection. But do not guess the floor and do not, go through this, results paralysis or panic selling or whatever you're thinking about doing. Do whatever you can to stay level-headed and be in good long-term assets. Now, of course, there are four pillars when it comes to this signal matrix. You've got the crypto narrative, the catalyst, psychology, okay? What are the stories behind, driving crypto? The structural or technical structure, price levels, which obviously induces a lot of fear or FOMO, historical demand zones. Of course, market cycle is probably number 3, oversold, overbought, whatever it may be, or the macro risk, which I'll explain to you, because all of these we can visualize in the charts. So this is, if I can just zoom in here, this is what we had. We had 3 extensive rallies since the last bear market, okay? And these rallies all represented different things and different drivers at different points in the market. Rally number 1, numero uno here, came in 2023, kind of October, November. If you guys remember, alts were dead. We were coming out of a bear market. Pepe was running during the first half of that 2023 market. You had Casper doing numbers, but really the entire market, gaming was absolutely dead. Everything else was dead. Introduction of AI, and we had a market that was largely driven by the promise of Bitcoin ETFs. We got the go-ahead in January. We had a nice rally. In fact, we had a huge rally for altcoins, and then we had a market correction. And guess what? Halving was selling into the event, of course. But we had a nice little dip, and then we had the 2024 catalyst. And this was Trump, the promise of Trump being a crypto-friendly president, got everybody super juiced up, and we had the rally to December 2025. Of course, the low point coming in April and the Trump meme coin. And then we had April, everybody left. Everybody was like, go away, selling may go away kind of attitude, and crypto is already dead. But then we had another tremendous rally here. Now, I made a video on the channel in July, August euphoria, and I said, sell some coins if you can, because everybody was waiting for post QE announcement. And then, of course, 2025 rally that began in April ended in October with the massive manipulation. So the catalysts were 2024, 2023, early 2024 was the catalyst of the ETFs right here. Then we had the Trump winning the US election. That topped in December, January 2025. Then we had the April lows. Again, tariffs coming, tariffs ending, right? Deal with China, deal with this. So that was the catalyst, right? And then digital asset treasury companies, or the DATs, had a huge impact on Ethereum. Then guess what now? 2025, 2026, what will be the catalyst? So far, I can't think of any single one catalyst. However, because technically we're supposed to go through the bear market year, what's likely to happen here is the potential, let me just go back here, is the potential that the market will look at any of these things, okay? Any one of these things here would be a potential catalyst. And these are, in no particular order, the Clarity Act, right? We know the Clarity Act is going to be passing sometime sooner. It's not a singularly, how do I want to say this? It's not the most bullish thing, but if it passes, it will be impactful. Cancellation of tariffs, bullish. New Fed chair that is pro Trump, absolutely bullish. QE showing up, absolutely bullish. Debt printing, or printing the US printing out of the due debt, which the printers have to turn on for anyway, is absolutely bullish. So they will do quantitative easing, but for now, you have to be very careful. And I'm going to show you something here. So we have this bear flag, okay? We have this bear flag. Let me just change colors here. We've got a bear flag that's playing out at the moment. And regardless of what anyone says, so let's put this to yellow. I want to show you something here. If this bear flag plays out, then what's likely to happen here is a market that goes around to $64,000 to $65,000, $66,000. But it won't stay there for long. And the way we can know that is if we take an extension, right, of the bear flag, and sorry, not from there, just coming down a little bit here, right? From that rejection there to here, if we extend that out, you can see we go into this demand zone, which is around that $64,000, $65,000 level. So that's what's going to happen, right? Ultimately, you cannot see these indicators and think that Bitcoin is going to be, in one way or another, either going to zero or it's going to 200,000, 500, $1 million. You're going to be somewhere in between. The aim for me is to try and get rid of the maximum fear, because we are in Bitcoin season, right? So based on these catalysts, technical, market, and macro, then what we have is, if you look at the narrative engine, people are wired to stories. Prices follow narrative, right? So whether it's macro, protocol level, or product level, people are always wired to price. And if you look at the evidence in terms of what we saw, this is exactly what we saw in what I was just explaining to you right now. Okay, so you had these burst ETF hype, you've got the US election hype, you've got the end of tariff hype, and these are the three major cycles that we saw. Okay, so ultimately the alt season index does mark, of course, if you're accumulating heavy, perhaps maybe you're already in stable coins. So therefore, I would wait for 25 for the altcoin index, whereas 75 will be ultimately altcoin season. So right now we're not in neutral. We are in the oversold territory, and up to 25, 40, this is an area where you can start bidding. Okay. So this gauge, basically, it measures the top 50 coins that are outperforming BTC over 90 days. And this is obviously a slow moving, high conviction signal for those of you that are in it to win it in the long term. Okay. Macro risk factors, of course, Bitcoin's performance over time versus the S&P 500. And this one is it's an interesting one. The S&P 500 has outperformed Bitcoin. And of course, we saw the crossover here at no time in 2025, except back in the early days of February, Bitcoin's been under the S&P 500. Okay, and we saw a major cross here for Bitcoin. So Bitcoin outperforming the S&P, and then of course we had this major drop, and we obviously now we are way underperforming the S&P 500. All right. So look, the more you, of course, you start to see aggressive accumulation trigger, well, you've got to be DCAing without obviously forcing yourself to catch the bottom, in my opinion. So if you're core BTC and ETH, then the rally relies on catalysts, support levels, and risk on in general. And if you are in satellite altcoins like all of us, rallies rely on alt season index, risk on, of course, BTC dominance, crash, and of course, never catch a falling altcoin if BTC pair is in free fall. And that's going to be quite key. So current market status, narrative neutral, technicals waiting, cycle itself, that's also waiting. Okay. Index is technically not at 25. Price is adjusting. And of course, if we do get a fake out or a small rally, then you've really got to capitalize on that. Okay. The accumulators toolkit is all season index, macro correction, or correlation, I should say, narrative scan, of course, technical analysis. Prepare for the manifesto. Don't predict the bottom. Identify the 4 pillars. Wait for the plus sign to align. Execute without emotions. Okay. So be prepared. Have a system, right? If you really want to sell altcoins because you've bought the wrong altcoins, or you just feel like, this game is too mentally tiring, get out of the market. Market doesn't need you. You don't need the market. You don't need that strength. But if you're accumulating Bitensa Tau, or I don't know, a good layer 1 or a DeFi protocol that you've qualified, and you believe the next 4 years is going to set you off financially free, then it really doesn't matter whether you buy a $1, $1.50, or 50 cents, or 20 cents for that matter. So in conclusion, I would say, look at all of these things, not in isolation, but collectively speaking. And the worst that can happen is Bitcoin does come back down to this order block here. But we will get this box of narratives triggering another move up for Bitcoin. And the fact that gold and the yen, or the 10-year Japanese bonds, are so much correlated. Like, I am waiting for this gold retracement, this silver retracement, and I promise you that money will go to Bitcoin. Until next time, my friends, have a lovely, lovely day, and I'll catch you on the next one. Smash the like.